All right, let's get started with our part 2 here for the feedback series I'm doing for Sync Academy and Sync Edge members. As I said before, I'll be doing this in chronological order. So I decided, though, after I looked at all of the outstanding tracks I still need to give feedback to, I'll probably break this up into 3 different videos because I think it's just way too much for my ears and for my voice. My voice tends to give out after about an hour of talking no matter what I do, so I'm going to try to go a little easy on myself and break this up into a couple of different videos. So anyways, you'll see a part 1, this is part 2, and then they'll upload a part 3 as well. So if you did sign up for feedback, I will email you and let you know which one of these videos belong to you, where your track actually is, so you don't have to actually go searching through all 3 videos. I know that's going to be a headache, but for everybody else, enjoy, have fun. Maybe you'll learn something from these notes that I give to these really talented and hardworking producers. First up here, we have Dustin, and Dustin says, my opinion is the most important. If the genre style is licensable and anything I can do to make it more likely to be placed is the mixing and mastering issues. Panning, you're deaf in one ear, so you want to notice if anything's odd. Okay. All right. No problem, man. Let's see what you got going on. Cool rockin' vibe, man. I think the mix is actually pretty good. I would say maybe a little bit more, we could use a little bit more on the bright end. It kind of feels a little bit dull and dark to me. So maybe we have a little bit more brightness probably within your guitars and your drums. In terms of licensability, I think the only thing that I'm noticing so far is it's very repetitive. We keep repeating this down, bum, 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 over and over and over again. And even the drums seem to be kind of looping the same sort of little drum fill, hitting the crash cymbal over and over again. So we're getting very loopy already, and we're only 30 seconds into the track. So I would encourage you to start to craft longer progressions that are maybe 8 bars long and not these really short ones, because the short ones, and you repeat them over and over again, I can hear the copy and pasting going on. And that's what you want to kind of avoid in this business. You want to make sure that your track really flows and kind of has a cool musical story pushing forward. I love that little B section, man, coming back to this part. Excellent. Like, that was just wonderful all over the place. So I think I want to hear that a little sooner in the track. I don't think we need as much of this buildup. So this is a 2.5 minute track. You could probably cut this down to 2 minutes, I'm guessing. We just don't need as much of that stuff being looped over and over again in the beginning. That was a cool little breakdown here. I think rather than having all these drum fills every single bar, that's what starts to make it feel like it's too much. I think just that kick was cool. And at the very end, or whatever you want to do for your drum fill. So one philosophy that I carry with this business, and I think just for music production in general, is less is more. Even though we got a cool drum fill, if we sprinkle into our track 8 times, it's 8 times less special now. That's the one way that I look at it. If it's really cool and really special and really interesting, let's save it for a really, really important use and a purpose. And I think for sure this part would have been saving it for that fill to get us back into the main beat of the track. The only thing panning I heard right there was you had these like kind of almost hi-hat, hip-hop hi-hats kind of panned off to the right. So I don't know if they were supposed to be panned off to the right. It was kind of just a strange sound. It didn't really bother me that much, but it was just kind of an interesting, having a sort of a really fast 32-second, I think it was 32 note hi-hat patterns, which is kind of strange for like a straight-ahead rock tune. So I don't know. For whatever it's worth, I don't know if that was intentional or not. I like this last part, man. That build up got me hyped up. I felt really good. I almost wanted to maybe hear this in the beginning of the track, almost like maybe you could start the track with this cool big build up. It just gets you pumped up and makes you feel energetic. I think even more so than the build up you had in the beginning. What was the other note I was going to say? Something about this last part. Hold on. Can't remember. I had something I was going to tell you. Hold on. It might be a little too early for my brain. Sorry. That's what it was. So your hi-hat, those shaker things are those weird kind of really fast ones. I think rather than that, I want to hear some shakers and just tambourines. Like just keep these percussion elements more organic, because the rest of the track is a pretty organic rock sounding track, right? So I would probably get rid of the electronic, unnatural sounding samples and put something that just whatever you want to do, but just make sure it's much more of a natural, organic sound. I think it would fit in much better with this kind of a tune, man. So yeah, I think just a little bit of brightness there. The loudness is great though. I think you have a nice loud full mix going on here. I can hear everything. Everything's fairly clear. So I think just a little bit more of that brightness will help you out. Very licensable, of course. This does really well with, everything pretty much. I did a lot of this kind of music, the rock. You can do advertisements, reality shows, lots of different things can use just straight ahead, like kind of like garage rock or sort of like even sports. This could be a really great opportunity for sports as well. So you're in the right place. You're doing really, really well with this kind of stuff. So just a couple of little thoughts here and there to kind of make sure that you structure things so that it's not getting too repetitive, man. But you're definitely on the right path, so keep it up. All right, next we've got Stuart. All right, let me pull up your track here, Stuart. No, I don't want to do that. I just want to pull up your... Track is not found. Maybe it's been removed. Oh boy, buddy. I don't know if I can get you feedback today. You're gonna have to. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think I just had the wrong link there. Oh, hold on. I don't want to bring the whole thing over. I just wanted to bring your track over. There we go. Okay. So you want to know, is this a licensable track? I know synthwave will not be popular for too long, but is this fun and lightweight? I thought it might be suitable for kids TV. From the 55 seconds, I tried to make it full-on finale. I tried to make it a full-on finale. Is there too much going on? Too many elements? Maybe getting too harsh in the soda can high end you mentioned. I tried EQing the master and moving high frequencies, but it just sounded less defined. Yeah, it takes me so long to complete a track. I lose all perspective on my tracks, especially by the time I master it. Okay, lots of stuff here, man. Let's take a listen. So definitely a few things I can talk about here. Definitely I feel the lightweight, upbeat, fun kind of energy you have going on here. Execution-wise, though, there's a lot of stuff going here that needs to be fixed, okay? First of all, the intro is very noisy and kind of chaotic sounding. I didn't feel very pulled into the track. I kind of almost felt repulsed from the track because there's just all this whoosh, swooshing around, and it didn't seem like it was really well crafted in terms of pulling me along for like what is the sound we're going to get. So I think the intro needs to have some work done. The mix itself, I'm not hearing much of a low-end presence to it, so I think the kick needs to be a lot more present and definitely a little bit more on the low end. I think we can put a little bit of those bass, that bass synth or synthia, whatever you're using, include a lot more sub frequencies. We need something that has a little bit more warmth and depth to it, because right now everything feels a little bit kind of in the mid-range, and the kick's not driving the track so much on that low thuddy area. So the track just kind of feels top heavy right now. It's not fully balanced. But also just the sounds you're using. I mean, there's this kind of this random voice that comes in, which I don't know why that's in there. It doesn't seem like it makes sense. It's kind of like a hip hop yell or something like that. I think you have some stuff that are working here. I think the main synth progression works fine, and your main lead, the kind of the high bells that you have on top there, that's all working fine as well too. But let me go ahead and see. There was a couple of things that just felt like they were out of place. Yeah, so even in here, there's these kind of weird things that have like an odd reverb in it. I hear these like cla, cla, cla. I don't know what it is. There might be like a reverb setting on your kick or something else. I don't know. But it sounds like this is kind of really strange digital sounding echo slapback thing. So that's kind of adding a little bit of noise to the track. So you want to check that kind of stuff out. And like those high, like it's okay when they start, but then by the end of the time they're done, they kind of get off track with the offbeat with the track. They kind of get a little bit slow, and so it sort of throws off the whole track and it makes it sound more chaotic and stuff. So I think for you, getting things to be a little bit tighter, right? Getting things to really kind of sync up a little bit more efficiently. That's probably what I would be focusing on. And again, like this flute kind of coming in at the end, that feels a little bit like a strange choice for a sort of 80s synthwave kind of a thing. So we're kind of, it sounds like what you're doing is you're just grabbing stuff and throwing it in your soup, but there's no recipe to be followed. And the recipe should be following along with a reference track, like listening to some other synthwave track that you want to emulate and going, well, what are they using? Let me use something like that. We don't want to start throwing in random vocals, random flute samples, random things that just don't really work in this world, because it starts to sound literally, or it starts to seem like it's a soup full of just random stuff, and it doesn't look so appetizing anymore. Okay. The other thought I had for you was, what was it? I almost hear like an Asian influence into this, which if you're going for that, cool. But if you weren't going for that, it's definitely on the Asian side of things. It just sounds like it comes from the East. So that might sort of put your track in a little bit more of a sort of a worldly category. So I don't know, for whatever it's worth, if that's what you're going for, cool. But if it wasn't, I think the pentatonic scale that you're using with your track here really sort of puts it into this kind of Eastern side. Also, I think with your main melody here, the sort of, ding, 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 ding. There's just kind of a plain lead there. We need to kind of get a little bit more interesting with the rhythms and the melodies that we put on top of our tracks. We want to make it a little bit more, I don't know, jazzy or feisty or whatever you want to call it, and kind of experiment with some different sort of melodies and some different rhythms. It's just kind of keep the interest sort of built up a little bit. If we just do really plain quarter note, half note sort of things, the track starts to feel like it's very amateurish, like it just wasn't really cared for, and there's obviously less chances of a melody like that. It's not impossible, but it's less chances that a melody like that's going to hook you and really hold you for the end of the track. But let's keep going here. Lots of timing issues there. So that other snare kind of thing that came in there, it's starting to rush ahead of the beat. The build-up was kind of cool, but I felt like we needed more of like an impact when your next part set happens. So maybe a crash, an impact, I don't know, some sort of an effect that should kind of give us like, pow, like a popping of a balloon, basically. But yeah, definitely I've already hearing a lot of rhythm issues here with the second track. And yes, your instincts were right. Yeah, you were asking if there's too much stuff going on. Absolutely. So you have the high bells and you have this other thing going on, kind of panned. And the problem is, it sounds like I'm in a coffee shop and there's two people talking to me at the same time. Who do I pay attention to? I don't know. They're both trying to get my attention, right? We do not want to do that to our listener. We want to give them one melody, one lead, one something. If we're going to do two, we need to do like a call and response. Let one take the lead, let that one go away, and have the second one come up as a response. Kind of the same thing with this other lead vocal vox synth you have going on here, kind of panning off to the right. It doesn't feel like it belongs in this track. It just kind of is a strange sort of sound. So again, for you, go to reference tracks. You got to have a reference track before you start your next track. I'm telling you, it's going to make you so much more in the pocket, like where you want to go with your tracks. And you're not going to be wondering, is this following along? Is this going to be licensable? If you're following along with the track that's probably more than likely you should be following along with a track that's been accepted by a library, then you know for sure it can be licensable, right? So I think a lot of this stuff that you're doing right now can be saved and solved by just knowing where you need to be going from the start. huge gong there at the end. Kind of a cool idea, but like doesn't, again, that definitely pulls it much more into this kind of like the Eastern style. So maybe you were, I guess, going to go, I mean, it does say Oriental right here. So I guess you were kind of going there a little bit. In terms of kids programming, I just personally don't recommend people try to go create music for kids programming because there's just not enough of that out there in the world to create a substantial form of income from it. I mean, if you just want to do this part-time and you're just looking for fun, kind of side pocket money, sure, absolutely, you can go in that direction. But for you, I would recommend if you want to do this to get a little bit more income in your pocket, I would say go for more of that kind of the corporate EDM, upbeat, modern stuff. I think that you'll find that you can get a lot more bang for your buck in terms of the kind of music that you make and throwing it out to a library that could get your tracks placed in commercials, promos, and reality shows and different types of shows. Okay. So definitely some work to be done on this. I don't think this one's licensable. I would not submit this one. I think definitely a little bit of work needs to be put together and simplify some things too. There's definitely a lot of busyness going on in your second half there. So, but keep it up, man. I definitely hear the cool, upbeat, energetic, youthful vibe you have going in there. Keep that alive. And now it's just time to like hone in on your skills and just practice this stuff a little bit more. All right, Kirk, you're next up. Looking for your feedback on arrangement, sound choices, overall vibe. Most importantly, isn't licensable. All right. Let's put it up here. There we go. Let's see. I think we need a little bit more going on here. I kind of get the minimal, sort of tribal drum pattern thing you're going on here. But I feel like at 27 seconds, because your bass line is it's just going between two notes back and forth, that's not really capturing too much interest. And then we're just adding a little bit extra to the drum, so that's not adding too much interest either. So it does feel a little bit repetitive and kind of just, to be honest with you, I mean, I don't want to be mean, but just a little boring. Like, it's just not really pulling me along for this kind of emotional, like, I think you want to have some intensity here. If you're calling it Shelter Before the Storm, right? You want to have some intensity. So I'm like, oh boy, something bad's going to happen. And I can hear a little bit of that hint coming through, but I think we need to add more either percussion to it, or we need to start putting together a little bit more of a melodic progression and probably do something a little bit more than just the two notes back and forth. Maybe create like a 4-note progression so it feels like we're actually going somewhere before we come back. So anyways, just a couple of thoughts. I think it just needs a little bit more development earlier on in the track. Yeah, so what I would have done is I would have thrown these cool new drum patterns we have going on earlier on in the track. And then at this point, we should be building up the music more because it feels like the music kind of just stayed stuck there in that sort of 2-note pattern. And the drums are building up, but the sort of low music is not pushing me forward. So I'm not being pulled into this track as it is right now. So I think some restructuring needs to be done here. And both need to be building up. Some musical elements need to be added on there. And the drums need to be adding in a little quicker in this. So I think just moving forward that way. Mix and samples actually sound great. Like, I don't really have much to say on that. I think your mixing and mastering sounds on point. And the drums sound very live. They sound like they were actually performed by a real human being. So you're nailing that for sure. Again, musically, we need a lot more going on than just this kind of simple pad at the very bottom. I think we need to start throwing in, it could be, kind of like a real dark piano with a lot of reverb on it. It could be some crazy sounding strings. I mean, you got to decide where you want to go with this kind of a track, or even synths if you want to do some crazy synths, but it's got to have more musically pulling me into it. I love that, man, at the end. I forgot what that instrument is called, but that's a really cool sound that you have going on there. Definitely pulls it more into the world vibe that you're going for, and not so much maybe just like a minimal tension kind of a track. I think if you can go in that direction and create a whole album with that sound, and obviously create your forward momentum and put all that stuff together, you would be pretty much unstoppable, man, because that is a very rare sound to be able to get. So I don't know where you got that sample or how do you put that in your track, but it sounded very believable, like it was a real authentic performance. So I would go in that direction. I think that's a really, really strong, solid sound, because that could be used for all different types of placements. And I'm sure if you do get accepted by a library with this sound, they're going to ask you to take some of those elements out for an alt mix. And then you've got this kind of just basic minimal tension track that can be used for many different types of opportunities. But if they want that world appeal to it and they want that particular sound, you just throw that stuff right back in and they can use the full version of the track. So I think you got something very licensable here. I think definitely some work needs to be done structuring, keeping the attention, and just adding a little bit more musically, melodically to your tracks to really hook your listener and pull them in, man. But other than that, I don't really have too many notes for you. I think you're on the right path here and you got some really cool things ahead of you. All right, Ken, you have only one track on your website, and I didn't get any notes from what you're really looking for, but that's all right. We will see what you got here. All right, let's take a listen to this. Ego Sum via music. The Hero Within. Here we go. Man, I'm loving this. This is a really cool, just crafted, beautiful piece of music going on here. One thing that I'm wondering though is this does sound more like it is a track that would have been composed like custom for a movie, because it does feel a little bit more like it's in that lane. Now, when you work with libraries, typically they're not going to ask and look for, not all the time, I'm not saying it never happens, but rarely is some movie going to go look for stock music, like pretty much the stuff that we create, the stuff that's pre-made, to fill up a movie, because they're going to want to have certain key points accented with the music that goes into their movie, right? So this one kind of feels like it was maybe composed for a custom film, and now we're just obviously listening to it here. So if you're going to go into this kind of world, I think maybe going into the trailer world would be something you want to consider, because trailer music can be used that way, where they're basically going to take 1, 2, maybe sometimes even 5 or 10 different trailer tracks and start like copy and pasting and kind of Frankensteining them together to create an actual trailer piece. So if you have this kind of orchestral inclination in you, you might want to go into that world, which would mean that you do need to have full drums and you need to have all that kind of stuff. And you probably need to have them a little bit sooner on in your track. We'll obviously listen to more of your track, but we're almost about a minute in and there's still not much going on in terms of the drums building up, that kind of a thing. Everything was sounding great, I want to say, until these horns came in. These low horns started to feel like they are not fitting in with the key of the track, and they also sound very just harsh, like a couple of toads that came in and kind of ruined the party. So I don't know what's the story with those horns, because everything else is sounding beautiful and mixing well together, but those horns came in and really kind of spoiled the party. So just wanted to let you know about that. Now, I like that kind of cool electronic thing you had going on there. That's a really interesting sound. I think you could go in that direction too. I think, though, you want to make sure that your tracks are a little bit more mid-tempo, up-tempo, a little bit more feisty, upbeat, optimistic, fun sounding. These slow, kind of dramatic sounds don't probably get it placed as much as an up-tempo one was. The other note I had is that you have this crash cymbal roll starting like 3 bars before the actual transition. So it just sounded like noise kind of whoosh, washing through the track until this transition happens. So I probably just keep these transitions to half a bar at the most before the actual transition. So it's just, we don't need to have a 3-bar kind of build up to this crash cymbal. It just starts to sound a little too noisy. All right, I feel now we've really lost our focus. I feel like we had this beautiful melodic start to it, and I knew exactly emotionally where we were. And now we're in this we took a hit of acid and we're kind of floating around, and there's just a lot of stuff swirling around in here. So I think we lost a little bit of our emotional focus for this track. For licensing, you got to have one particular emotional focus per track, and you got to really just explore and develop that one particular sound. I think right now we're kind of going, this is what it makes me feel like this might have been like a custom track, that if there was a movie where they wanted like the beginning of the track to have that beautiful orchestral music, and then they're like, well, we have this other part though where it gets a little bit chaotic and uncertain, they might have had a composer compose something that has all these elements in it. Now I feel like we got our focus back. All that part in that center section was just very chaotic and kind of noisy for my ears. Now I feel like we're back to something that's concrete that we can really sink our teeth into. And you probably already know this, but I gotta let you know, this is way too long of a track for sync licensing, almost 4 minutes long. And we're not adding much more to this track. Every time I'm hearing these new parts come back in, it feels like we're just kind of copying and pasting what we heard before. So I'm not hearing like it needs to be, there's no reason for this track to be 4 minutes long. I think probably 2.5 minutes is probably all you really need. So a lot of this stuff is just repeating and not really adding forward momentum to the track. We got to make sure that we always do that. And probably 2 to 3 minutes is probably all you really need for sync licensing stuff. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of that. Got a cool feel though, man. I love just bobbing my head to this thing. It has a really nice sound to it. Just way too much going on here, though. It's a nice mellow part, and then it's like crash cymbal, kick, this and that, and just a lot of stuff just being thrown in here. It's like this track just wants to breathe right now, especially towards the end. You kind of want to just, we're just having a letdown moment right here, right? So you want to kind of let all the music sort of sing that, and sometimes having nothing go on is the best choice. So I want to make sure that at least that's something that I had to learn in my career, is it's not always about throwing stuff into your track to make it better. Sometimes it's about selectively saying no to a lot of things and just letting something just kind of breathe and play out. And then you definitely have a lot of silence at the end here, so I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And we always, of course, have to have that hit definite ending at the end, man. So definitely some work to be done here. I don't think this one's quite ready to go yet. And I think just thinking about this in terms of how is the industry going to respond, and is there a need for this particular track? I think focusing your direction here might be a good thing to be thinking about. So thanks for sending it, man. All right, Fabian, next up. This This is the first track for my new hybrid metal album to pitch to a new library. I just want to get your input on where you think these kind of tracks can get placements, if you think the kinds of tracks are indeed licensable, and of course your feedback on the track itself. All right. Let's pull your track up here. Okay, am I doing something wrong? Yeah, your track has been removed, buddy. Sorry, man. Got to check your links before you send them to me. Yeah, it's definitely been removed, Fabian. So you need to email me a new link. Yeah, it's been removed. So I think you removed your track, bud. Sorry, man. Can't get you feedback right now. All right, I'm going to make sure I star you so I know to come back to you. Lavon, here we go. You are next. Let's see if your SoundCloud works. All right, we do have a SoundCloud here that works. Okay. All right, so you want to know, you're a beginner, you want to get your feedback on whether or not it's licensable and if you're headed in the right direction. You want to know structure, dynamics and variation, quality of instrumentation, overall mixing and mastering. Cool, man. We got you. I haven't heard much of your track yet. I'm going to guess here you're pretty much at like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 in terms of is this going to be licensable, because got my attention. You immediately got us into the vibe, the emotion that we wanted to get into. You're adding new elements. You're changing things up. You're creating the forward momentum. The mix sounds great. The instrument sounds great. I literally have not a thing to say in terms of how to improve your track. So we're going to listen to the whole thing, of course, but after doing this for quite a few years, I can kind of tell within the first couple of seconds if the track is going to be a strong, licensable track, and I'm got a big hunch that yours is going to be that. Strings sound good, man. You were asking if the string quality is great. I think they're just a little ahead of the beat. You might want to just delay them a little bit. I feel like they're a little bit rushed, but the sounds are great. All the other sound and sample qualities are awesome. You're using some really great stuff. One thing you might want to throw, I like these kind of cool, beautiful strings that kind of grow and just give you this kind of creepy feeling. I want to hear maybe a lower second note along with them that harmonizes with them, something that gives a little bit more depth to it and a little bit more weight to the bottom of them. I think that would really go a long way and just make them kind of, whatever that low note's going to be, you decide what that's going to be. But I think that could add a nice little touch to it. Lavon, man, it's just like a pleasure to listen to your music, man. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. This is just such a great, awesome track to listen to, man. I don't have much to tell you. Sorry to disappoint you, but I hope this is encouraging for you to know that you are definitely doing what you should be doing. It's very licensable. I think this is absolutely something you can throw right to a library, create a full album of this if you haven't done it already. Obviously, this is something that comes to you fairly naturally, it sounds like. This gets used all the time in reality shows. I can't tell you how many of these type of tracks I put together in my career for reality shows, competition shows. It could also be used for dramas, crime shows, that kind of thing. So it's a very broad kind of a use sort of a sound that you have going on here, man. But everything is ticking off. The structure is awesome. You're moving things forward. I didn't ever feel like, even though you're using even though you're using that, all the other elements you put on top of your track did not feel repetitive at all. You actually added the interest and the forward momentum, and you kept building things up all the way to the very end, man. So don't have much for you to improve upon. A couple of little, the string ideas. That's about it. But just keep doing this, man. This is absolutely a great sound for you to really specialize in and jump into. And I know you're going to do really well with the library with this sound, man. Keep it up. All right, Phil, you are next up. I think you have a YouTube video. Yes, you do. Before we play that, let me go ahead and load you in here. There we go. All right, so this is an unlisted video. No problem, we got it. All right, so you want to consider the music review for musical content, harmonic, melodic groove, technical for the mixing, reverb, compression. So you're mixing, mastering, basically. Okay. All right, no problem, Phil. Let's take a listen to what you got here. I'm a little bit perplexed about that. Like the beginning vocals and the music really fit together well. Like I was feeling all of that. And then when these synthetic voices came in, it felt like they weren't really belonging under this chord progression. Like that melody shouldn't have been there. I like it though. Like I liked what that melody was, but it didn't feel like it fit there. I don't know. It just felt like it was a mistake. Like it shouldn't have been there. So I just, right off the bat, just giving you my first impression, it didn't feel right to me in the beginning of the track. So I want to listen to the rest of it. Maybe there's another place where it comes in where it does feel a little more natural, but right off the bat, that just felt like it was kind of jammed in there. And I think just melodically, it literally didn't feel like it was matching the chords underneath it. It just felt like it was in the wrong place of the track or something like that. Vocals sound great. I would add a little bit, maybe delay or reverb on them. They feel really dry, but great performance though. They sound really just well performed. They did feel at some points a little ahead of the beat. So maybe you want to delay those a little bit. They felt like they were kind of rushing ahead of your keyboard, your piano sound. But yeah, let's listen to more. Let me see if we can get you some more notes. Same thing with this bottom part with these low, I think, synths or strings you have coming in here. Beginning of the progression sounds fine. Towards this last note, it feels like it's kind of really dissonant and it's kind of adding this mud to the track and it's not very clear. I dig the track though. It definitely to me feels much more like kind of like a 90s, like early 90s sort of a dance tune or a pop tune. So just so you know, if you want to go in this route for licensing, you're going to go for the throwback stuff. So if you need to go with a library that's looking for this kind of sound, they're going to look for sort of like, we want, 90s sounding dance music or whatever they want, right? And there can be some opportunities for that, but in terms of, are you going to be able to crank out, I don't know, if you do an album a month, you're going to do 12 albums a year in just 90s music? Probably not. I don't know if there's enough demand out there to sustain a long-term endeavor with this style. So just word to the wise there, if you want to do it just to put it out there here and there, that's fine. I think there's definitely, I've just noticed a lot more throwback and retro sort of demands out there, because this definitely doesn't feel modern to me. This feels like it's a couple of decades old, which is fine, but just know that like most libraries these days, they're going to, most of the opportunities and placements out there are for what's the sound that's happening right now, the sound that you can hear on the radio. Well, if there was a radio that still existed, but the Billboard charts, basically, those are the sounds and the artists that a lot of these libraries are following and chasing and want to have music that sounds like that. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. This is where it feels right. So I think my guess is that this is where you originally wrote that part, but then you also threw it on the beginning of the track, which I don't think works as well as it does here. So I probably wouldn't have put it in the beginning of the track. So that solves that mystery at least. Like that line, found my inner peace, that was all rushed ahead of the beat. So that's the kind of stuff that I say, try to push that stuff a little bit further back, okay? And that's my cat crowning. Sorry, that's not my baby. I'm not a neglectful father. That's just the cat. Don't worry about him. It's crazy, that last little progression there actually sounded like it could have been made into a much more modern sound if you had like modern drums and other things going on. So I think you definitely have the ability to go into a little bit more of a modern place if you want to. And right now, ironically enough, 80s pop music has made a resurgence, and it's now what all these pop artists are basically doing. So it's up to you, which direction you want to go with it. But I definitely think the sort of old school approach on this, the 90s sound, can be a little bit limiting. So you just got to make sure that you're aware of what you're getting into. But the mix wasn't too bad. I didn't have too many issues on that. I think just some of those dissonant areas and maybe some of the vocals that just didn't work out here and there, and some of them rushed here and there. But those are small little details you can kind of mess with. I think the bigger thing for you is just to realize which direction am I going to go with sync licensing, because remember, it's not about what you love and what kind of music you're really into, but it's also about what does the entire industry want and what kind of a demand is out there. So you got to make sure that you are really sort of serving the needs of those libraries that you want to work with. Okay. Thanks for submitting, man. I hope you found this useful. All right, we're gonna do this last one so that I can get my cat to get out of here and stop killing me here. All right, and then we'll go to our third one. Don't worry, I'm not done with them. So let's go to yours. Hopefully this one works. We are on SoundCloud and we've got a track, so we are rocking and rolling there. Okay, so Chris, see the link above for the public review. Let you know on composition, mixing, and mastering. All right, no problem, man. Let's go ahead and get started. Make sure that wasn't a glitch with SoundCloud. Oh, kind of a strange sound you kind of threw in there. It felt like I just glitched or stuttered or something like that. The sound of this is actually really, really nice. It's really beautiful, really majestic sounding, and I think your instruments and your mix sounds great. We'll obviously get further into your track, but again, just like most producers are doing, it's slow. It's a little dramatic. It's a little on the slow, kind of depressing side, and that's just not going to have as many placement opportunities as the more upbeat, mid-tempo stuff. So just word to the wise. Really majestic, man. Beautiful music here. I love like where you're going with this. So I want to make sure that you know that I might have some critical points for you, but I think your music is really, really beautiful. Yeah, I can actually see this doing well in like nature documentaries. I think you obviously have it here with your picture that you got of the savannah. So I think you kind of have the idea of where this could probably be placed, if it could be placed by libraries. But again, the slower, more majestic kind of, just slower songs, I just find don't get as many placements as the more up-tempo ones. Kind of a strange little timing transition there. Kind of went boom ba, and then it started it. So that was kind of just a strange timing thing. I think I wanted it just to start where the thing was going to start. Your instruments sound great. The mix is there. So not a lot I can really offer you there. I think you're doing very well in terms of this like orchestral direction you're going in. One thing I would have liked to hear is probably more, probably intense drums kind of building up towards the end here. This is obviously going to be the big finale of your tracks. We kind of want to make these drums a little bit more intense and kind of really just amp up the energy a little bit more towards the end. We usually want to do that. You have some drums here, but I kind of feel like we needed a little bit more, something to kind of just get my heart rate going up a little bit more, because it's such a big, beautiful, cinematic piece of music that you've created here. So I wanted the energy to kind of get lifted up a bit. But transitions, other than a couple little interesting things that I heard, are great, and I like how you're building the track up all the way, all that kind of stuff. So just be aware though, there might be some libraries that could be interested in this kind of music in terms of it being structured this way. But I think if you want to get into the orchestral lane, it's probably where you're going to get the most bang for your buck is going to be in the minimal stuff, the tension stuff, where it could be used for reality shows and that kind of thing. And that's not going to be this big, larger than life sound like you have here. It's going to be a much smaller sound. Still can be really cool and intense, but just less. It's going to be kind of a less is more of approach. Or going into the trailer world where you're literally just cranking out just massive, huge buildups and drop downs and risers and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of the library world, if you're trying to become just a film composer, this would be a great thing to showcase if you want to become a direct film composer with a director or a producer of a movie or something like that. But with libraries, we usually don't work that way. So I just want to put that out there. I think there are obviously libraries out there that can find a home for this kind of style of music, but whether or not it's going to be tons and tons of placement opportunities. I would say if you're going to partner with a library, make sure that they have some clients that do nature documentaries, because that's where I can hear the stuff being played more than anything else. And even just documentaries in general, probably you could get something like this, but this has definitely got screaming to me nature. So I think you're on the right path there. You kind of had an idea of where you wanted to go with that. So, all right, that's what's going to wrap us up for the part 2. Hang tight, because we have a part 3 coming up, and I will finish up everybody's track that did not have a review yet. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.